everyone, and welcome to Total Football Talk. It's been a while. It's been a long while. We are alive, as is most people, and we are dealing, as is everybody else, good, bad, or indifferent. I've been really busy teaching the kids, working from home, like working my tail off, helping the wife out, doing some stuff around the house. What have you been up to, E?
I've been working, going to the office every day. The wife goes into the office every day. Kids obviously aren't in school, so they're being taught from home. They're doing a little e-learning, probably like your kids as well. Other than that, man, it's pretty much been business as usual, but busy as we're getting work done on the house. But hey, you know what? We're here to provide you football knowledge and entertainment. That's what we're here for.
Absolutely, because the show, as they say, must go on. So, we're going to start with the Chicago Bears, and I'm going to say one thing. This is now the second time in 4 years, or less than 4 years, that the Chicago Bears have went out in the free agent market, spent big money on a position, and then drafted it in the first round or with their first pick. I don't understand, dude, how this guy for Chicago isn't fired yet is literally beyond me. I don't understand it.
His time is coming. He did the same thing with Mike Glennon in 2017.
Yep.
The dog goes out and drafts Mitchell Trubisky because he likes the car he drives. And then you have 9 tight ends on your team. You signed Jimmy Graham for $16 million guaranteed, $9 million the first year, no trade clause, and then all you had is might as well go draft one while you're at it.
I don't understand it. I don't. To me, the Chicago Bears are. You want to know why the Pittsburgh Steelers, as much as I hate them, do well? Do you want to know why teams like New England win every year? Do you want to know why your team, if it isn't one of the go-to 6, don't win every year? It's because they do things like the Rams and the Bears do. They go out and they draft best player available on their board, saying, who needs linemen? We're fine. We'll just block with 3 guys and hopefully we'll be okay. And then we'll just blame Goff and get rid of him and draft another quarterback. Because, quarterbacks, they're all out of college. They always turn out to be gold. You never have to worry about getting the right guy because every quarterback is phenomenal. Or in the Bears' case, well, we don't need linemen. If we have 10 tight ends, we could just convert them to line. I don't understand it. I will never understand for the life of me why a team drafts for best player available versus need.
Well, before we get right into the Bears draft, let's just throw this out there. This will be Ryan Pace's and Matt Nagy's last year, unless they make the playoffs and actually get past the first round, and I'll tell you why. The Bears have the third easiest or tied for third easiest strength of schedule going into 2020 season. We don't know what the schedule is yet. That comes out later this week. But they also declined the 5th-year option on Trubisky's deal. Hey, you know what? If Trubisky loses the job to Nick Foles out of training camp or preseason or whatever, Trubisky's riding the bench. He ain't going to get another shot. Okay? They could have waited out the process and taken a whole slew of quarterbacks. You could have Cam Newton still out there. Okay, he hasn't signed anything with anybody. I haven't heard a peep of where he's interested in. Jameis Winston signed a 1-year deal to back up Drew Brees in New Orleans. Okay, 1 year. He's making more than Taysom Hill. Taysom Hill has thrown. Actually, it's just funny. Jameis Winston has thrown more passes in his career to Saints players than Taysom Hill has.
Oh my gosh.
Right. And then Andy Dalton got released. Thought he could have been a good backup to Joe Burrow, but apparently Cincinnati didn't want to go that route. So he signs a 1-year deal in Dallas to back up Dak Prescott. And when the rich get richer, I swear I look at the Bears and I'm like, man, what curse do you have if you're a quarterback? You don't want to get selected by Chicago. Well, I'll tell you what the curse is. It starts with the ownership. Ownership has been brutal for years upon years upon years. Okay? Just look at the quarterbacks they go through. I'm not going to name them all. Because we've been here for 3 hours. But as far as the draft goes with the Bears, A, they got to hit it on the season, and B, I'm not okay. So their first pick was a tight end from Notre Dame, Cole Kmet, number 1 tight end on the draft board, which I'm okay with if they didn't already have 9 tight ends on the roster. But you need a pass catcher, okay? And you still need somebody opposite of Allen Robinson. I'm sorry, it's not going to be Anthony Miller. Anthony Miller is a slot receiver. They decided not to go get a wide receiver either in free agency. They could have had Robbie Anderson. They could have had Joe Schmo. I didn't think better than Anthony Miller on the outside because he can't stay healthy, okay? So when you're going to throw Allen Robinson into triple coverage all day, hey, fine, great. You got the time for 30 is in the schedule, whatever. Hey, let's just draft a tight end. But I like that Kmet can stretch the field, okay? Watch a lot of Notre Dame games. Really, if it wasn't Ian Book, okay, as far as the names throwing all these guys the ball, you wouldn't know who their quarterback was. But because I get a lot of Notre Dame games out here, and actually everybody gets Notre Dame because it's on NBC every week anyways. But, their second biggest name on offense outside of the quarterback was their wide receiver, Chase Claypool. He actually went round 2, pick number 49, to Pittsburgh, which I thought was an excellent pick. There's a lot of people out there who are kind of like, oh, Claypool doesn't have the tape. He takes some plays off, or whatever. Name me a player that doesn't take a play off. Okay, great, thanks. That was. But I thought they could have used him as a wide receiver and hybrid. I would have loved that pick in the second round with their first pick. Okay, actually, kind of fills 2 positions with one. Like Jimmy Graham and Jesper Horsted or Demetrius Harris or whoever you're going to line up at the tight end and let them block. Give them help on the right or left side. That's what they're there for. Claypool could have been used as like I said, a hybrid. But they go Cole Kmet. Okay, fine. You know what? Kmet, as long as they don't get a head coach that says, oh, we don't deal with tight ends, let's trade him to Carolina. We'll be fine at the tight end position for quite a few years as long as there's competent quarterback play. And I mean confident, I mean throwing to our own team and not the other team, or being able to read a defense. However, the second pick, right after Chase Claypool, the Bears went and they picked up cornerback from Utah, Jalen Johnson. Now, I was kind of okay with this pick, and I was kind of not. I'm like, okay, well, they could have won safety. I'm like, where does the O-line help? Maybe you get the O-line first, and then maybe come that, or maybe you take your chances and fill your needs. In case you gotta just take a guy because it fills a spot on your roster, and that's what the draft is for: to fill out spots and get depth. But no, they got a corner, which is fine because he's gonna line up opposite side of Kyle Fuller, which we need another guy. Anyways, so I thought their first 2 picks, was a hit and miss. The jury's going to be out because Jalen Johnson, typically cornerbacks get torched their first year and then come back the second year, and they're a lot better because they know the game more, they know the speed better, they can play to their strengths. So the corner situation, okay, as long as he doesn't go on the number 1 guy and get torched, like as long as he's not on Devontae Adams the whole time, he should be okay and be able to hold his own because he's going to have a lot of help from Jackson and Fuller on the other side. Anthony, before I move on, your thoughts on the first 2 picks?
Well, as I said, you get a tight end when you spent $16 million on one. And outside of Rob Gronkowski, everyone loves Kelsey. Everyone talks about Zach Ertz. But honestly, I'll say Kelsey, and that's it. I love Tyler Higbee. I love what he does for the Rams. But how far did the Rams go with Tyler Higbee as the number 1 guy on the passing chart? How far did New England go without Rob Gronkowski this year? Right? So you can make an argument both ways. But when you look at tight ends in this league, and everyone's using them, and everyone's trying to use them in different ways, it is a very difficult position to find because you need a guy in order to get a guy. It seems like you have one of 3 options. You get a guy like Gronk who can go get it no matter where you throw it. You can get a guy like Higbee who's really good at catching the football and really good at blocking, but he's not going to wow you with the spectacular, catch, and he's not going to dominate every safety he comes in contact with. Or you get a guy like Tyler Higbee, Everett, who looks the part, has a lot of speed, is a matchup nightmare, but couldn't block a wet paper bag from getting through. So it seems to me like the league is still trying to figure out tight end, and I've not seen the Bears utilize a tight end since Mike Ditka. So I don't know why they're so hot and horny for all the tight ends they can get. When last year and under Nagy so far as a coach, the tight end has been MIA in most of the passing routes. So I'm with you. You could say you like the guy, but it's how they're going to use him.
Don't forget the Bears also drafted Adam Shaheen over George Kittle.
Right.
So.
As far as their second pick, look, I always like a corner if he's got length. This is such a passing league, you need to have corners. So, good on them for going out and getting another corner. It's not what you needed. So if you want my overall assumption of your first two picks, I give you an F-, because you needed O-line, you need a running back, and you could still talk about Montgomery all you want, but that's like Ram fans talking about this other douche canoe that the Rams got before they drafted the running back this year. I don't even remember his name. What is the guy's name? He can't catch a pitch. From Memphis.
Wait. The drafted running back or the running back already on your team?
The guy that we drafted last year, not this year.
Oh, Darrell Henderson.
Yeah, the one.
Like to call like Devery or Darnell or something.
Well, when you learn to play football at a professional level, I'll learn to call you by your name. So Denise Henderson is horrible. So, the Rams had to do something. And if you don't believe me that Henderson is garbage and that the Rams are well beyond Henderson, go ahead and look at who they drafted with their second round pick, and come talk to me about them being A-OK with Henderson. I don't understand drafting guys at positions you don't need. The Rams needed a running back. Fine. I'm okay with it. The Bears, they needed a wide receiver. They needed an O-lineman. What did they do? They got a tight end when they have 14 already on the roster. They got a DB
that's hilarious.
when they already had one. And their secondary. So for me, it's a logical pick, but it's also going to be Exhibit Z on why you will have a former head football coach and GM come Black Monday of 2021.
So the Bears ended up taking a wide receiver and offensive lineman. They got Darnell Mooney, a speedy wide receiver out of Tulane. Hey, that's cool. We had a speedy wide receiver too. He was 5'8". His name was Taylor Gabriel. He worked out really well. Yeah. Too bad you used him the wrong way. So when the Bears go get a speedy wide receiver, and I remember they drafted a tight defensive end because he could jump out of a 5-foot pool. That worked out well. I'm gonna keep my thoughts on Mooney pretty light because you got to give the guy time, but he's also probably in the wrong organization to give time anyways. I will say the Bears did go out and they did sign Ted Ginn Jr. So, hey, old man Ginn, I know you're going to maybe be returning punts or whatever, but maybe you can line up on the outside. And you know what? I'll tell you something else. Maybe the Bears are prepping for Cordero Patterson to line up outside of Allen Robinson. And actually, I wouldn't be too upset about that, even though he does return kicks. I mean, if he's going to line up outside wide, you could have Miller in the slot. I'm okay with that. It definitely gives you some options, and it gives you a big body to throw.
Hey, Eric.
However,
I think the Bears should seriously consider drafting Hulk Hogan because, I saw him slam Andre the Giant once, and that means he could probably play D tackle.
wrestler, like in The Replacements, the movie with Keanu Reeves.
Right.
And have him pushing people around.
They should get Keanu Reeves. He threw the ball, and he drives a nice truck.
Yeah, absolutely. Shane Falco. Hey, we've had worse than quarterback than Shane Falco. Anyways, they're two offensive linemen came in back-to-back picks in the 7th round. One guy out of Colorado, one guy out of Tennessee State. I don't know either of those guys. I never heard of the guys. There were a couple on there in the 2nd and 3rd round before the Bears traded the 3rd round pick. There were some guys who could have paid immediate dividends. There's a guy in the 3rd or 4th round that went from Kentucky, Logan Sternberg, and I know Sternberg only because what really got me interested in this draft, this virtual draft the NFL held, was that I did a college football league, and you'll hear me talk about this a couple of times because this is how I know guys and where they went and what their names are. I remember Sternberg getting off the offensive line and blocking down the field for Lynn Bowden Jr., the quarterback, running back, wide receiver from Kentucky. So when you see a guy like that get out, and I know a lot of offensive linemen do it, but man, when you're watching a game in Kentucky and you see things that you never thought Kentucky would do or a school like Kentucky would do, kind of opens up your eyes to what you're seeing and be like, oh, hey, you know what? I should write that name down. So, the Bears failed on where and how many offensive linemen they drafted. I mean, they drafted 2. I don't expect these guys to even make the team or even play that much. So before any of the grades came out, I gave the Bears a C+ only because, hey, they got Kmet. And when the grades came out, they gave him a C+. I was like, well, how'd you do this for a living? You get paid and stay in my basement and do it. So,
okay.
I don't even know if I'd give them that high, to be honest with you, just because there was a lot of players that could have taken, they should have taken, and a lot of players that they probably should have taken.
This is what I don't understand about draft grades. You look at the guys they drafted, but you don't look at the guys they could have drafted. You look at the guys that they got, and you don't look at what they actually needed. I heard somebody go, oh, well, the Rams drafted a running back in line, and that's exactly what they needed, and they needed a DB, and they got that, and they needed a linebacker. Yeah, they did. You know what they didn't need? They didn't need a 7th-round lineman from Clemson. Now, I like the kid. I think he's going to be good, okay? I think he's going to be good enough to come in and play. Maybe not right away, but give him a year or so to learn the ropes. Somebody gets injured, he'll be a capable backup, and then maybe work his way into being a starter. But you've passed up on guys who were ready to go plug and play right now. And then Brett Favre's favorite guy got drafted by the Rams. I don't like drafting linebackers with injury histories. The defense in the NFL is tough enough to play in this league. And when you're coming in hurt, again, we're not doing the Rams, but what I'm getting at is when I look at the Bears and I see them go, oh, well, they addressed all that they needed. They're missing the boat entirely. I give the Bears a D-. Okay? I give the Bears a D- because this was a wide receiver heavy draft. They had an opportunity to get one of the really good ones because they were about 2 rounds deep of talent in wide receiver. And they waited until what round? The 3rd or 4th? 5th.
But they didn't have the draft capital to move up to where they could have got back in their 1st round.
They didn't need to. In the 2nd round, you had ready-to-go superstars at wide receiver. And the Bears got a tight end. Right?
Yeah, don't tell you.
They get a lineman way later, later in the draft. I guess for me, ultimately these draft grades, they never really pan out because no one remembers what you gave the Bears in 2020 when it's 2025, right? And those guys' 5-year contracts are up and you know what you got, right? They remember the 1st rounders. They don't remember the 4th rounders unless it's somebody like Corey Littleton who ends up going to Oakland for a butt ton of money. So, sorry, Vegas. But I don't like what the Bears did. They didn't address their needs when they should have addressed them. They drafted best player available. They didn't improve their football team. They showed no knowledge whatsoever of what their team needed going into the 2020 season and what hurt them in 2019. So when I look at that and then I see that, I mean, somebody from that draft gonna pop and show up? Of course. One person always inevitably does. Although there are some drafts, a lot of teams experience that where they get nobody. I just didn't like what the Bears did. I didn't like what the Bears passed up on to get what they got. And I honest to God, I cannot figure out your GM. I don't know if he is hammered drunk before every draft or if he's just that goddamn stupid. I can't figure it out. But it's one or the other.
Neither can the 31 other teams, and that's why the Bears are the Bears.
Yeah. So.
But hey, I'll tell you this much. At least we don't train our number one wide receiver for a six-pack of beer.
Yeah, you also don't give a injury-prone wide receiver $85 billion either, a million, whatever it was. I said billion on purpose. I was being sarcastic. But I know one thing, bear down is appropriate because the Bears are going to be down for a while till they get this fixed. It's like the Rams. Horns up? Yeah, because we're looking up at everybody else right now in the division. So.
Wait, hold on a second. You saying they're not going to go 11-5?
Yeah, I'm saying they're not going to go 11-5. Now, I will say this. If the Rams make the playoffs, we know exactly how good Sean McVay really is. Because this team, this is not a playoff team that we have on the field right now. It just isn't. So. But stranger things have happened. Righty?
Yep, that's right. At least I know this about the NFC North. And I can say this with supreme confidence. Fourth place is always reserved for Detroit.
Well, the problem is in the NFC West, the Cardinals have really done well this offseason. So if those players produce, the Rams could find themselves in a little bit of hot water here. Anyway, that's our first segment. We're covering the Bears. I know I felt like I threw a lot of Ram stuff in there. I'm sorry. I couldn't help myself. I've got a lot to say when it's the Rams draft. As far as the Bears go, again, the cornerback is always a safe, good bet because you need corners in this league with it being a passing league. But, my goodness. Chicago, you got a D-. Good job. Eric, your final grade for the Bears.
I'm going to stick with my overall C+. I felt good about that. Again, there was hits, there was misses, but you know what? You got to look forward to who you have, what you're going to do with them. And if the Bears use Cole Kmet the right way, the way they should have with Greg Olsen for many years instead of trading him to Carolina, the Bears could have a really good tight end for the next decade, and that could prove big dividends from them, being 8-8 to 10-6 or 11-5. And I'm not saying that this year. I'm just saying years down the road. I think it's going to be difficult for them this year, but they are playing. They're playing with a third place schedule, tied for third of the easiest schedule as far as from last year to this year. Win percentage from their opponents. That changes on a yearly basis. We understand that. It's just what it is right now because there haven't been any games played. So we'll see. There's always optimism when it comes to that, and it's going to be all dependent on who throws in the football too. So.
Well, part one's over. Part two, we'll cover the Rams. That'll be coming up later. I'm Anthony.
I'm Eric.
Horns up.
No horns this segment. Only bear down.
Only bear down. Later. Hello, everyone. Welcome to segment 2. I'm Anthony.
I'm Eric.
Yeah, I was wondering when he was going to talk. He's not with us. He's in another planet, apparently. Actually, Chicago is like another planet right now. Anyway, So we touched on the Bears draft last time around, and I gave the Bears a D-. Eric gave them a C- or C+.
Dude, I
Eric,
can barely hear you.
what did you give the Bears the last time around? Why don't you stop moving and shoveling food in your face and relax for a minute?
I apologize. I got Sprint.
All right. What grade did you give the Bears? Was that?
I gave the Bears.
There we go.
I gave the Bears a C+.
That's what I thought, and I gave him a D-. So on to the Rams. So Eric,
I think your seriously gave him like a Z. The Z is complete.
well, I didn't like what they did. I really didn't. But moving on, let's talk about the Rams. So the Rams needed offensive line. They needed corner. They needed linebacker. They needed running back. And that's and a kicker. But you're not going to get a kicker in the draft, or so I thought. Okay, we'll see what it is. I mean, maybe you should get a kicker in the draft. The Rams got Zerline in the draft. What did the Rams end up doing? Well, with their first pick, they picked up Cam Akers. Now, guys, if you needed any more evidence that I was right about Henderson, then explain to me why the Rams drafted Akers with the number 2 overall pick. If Henderson was their guy moving forward, they'd have no reason to draft another running back. So I like that pickup because Akers reminds me a lot of Warrick Dunn, same school. And I like the fact that they got somebody who's multi-purpose who can basically make sure he never leaves the field. And that's really what Cam Akers is going to do. Okay? Right, Eric?
Right. Yeah, Akers ran behind a bad offensive line at Florida State, and he put up a lot of yardage, which, some of those things is what you look for out of a running back. He is a workhorse. He can be a 3-down back. They're not going to use him like that the first year, but they're going to get him acclimated. Cam Akers, good selection. I thought it was between him and J.K. Dobbins from Ohio State. And so if it were me drafting, I probably would have went with Dobbins. Where he ended up, I couldn't believe it. Like, I thought, he got drafted by the Ravens. I thought that helped them out tremendous. But, with Malcolm Brown not being under contract after this season, it makes all the sense in the world to go after one of those running backs, and they went with Cam. So I'm curious to see behind that offensive line how he's going to do.
Well, the fact that he ran well behind a poor offensive line should mean he's going to do well with our poor offensive line. But the NFL is a different game and a different animal. I will say one other thing. I like Dobbins from Ohio State. I like his size a little bit more, but I don't think Malcolm Brown, even though he's got 1 year left on his contract, I don't think he's a starter opening day.
Not.
I think opening day the starter is going to be Cam.
Yeah. Comes right in and he's the lead back.
Yep. All right, number 2 selection for the Rams. Go.
University of Florida wide receiver Van Jefferson. Now, I thought the Rams could have gone after more of an area of need. I know it was a deep wide receiver draft. Van Jefferson's name really didn't come up at any time as far as talking about wide receivers. However, after losing or trading Brandon Cooks, not really losing them, but trading them, I thought the Rams could have went one more year with the wide receivers that they had, and maybe got somebody later in the rounds who could, fill special teams. So I like the kid's size, but if you're really expecting him to supplant Josh Reynolds in the starting lineup, it's not going to happen.
No. I hated this pick for multiple reasons. Number 1, we needed a lineman, and this was the time to get one. There were still 3 or 4 really good ones on the board, including the guard from Ohio State, I believe, was still on the board. Right, Eric?
Yeah, I believe he was. I mean, there was a lot of Big Ten and SEC linemen on the board. So really, when you start getting into that, it doesn't matter who you go after. Maybe somebody who fits
The system.
scheme pretty well. But I thought offensive line would have been perfect at that position, just like you mentioned.
So then, here's the other reason I hate the pick. I cannot stand legacy draft picks. For those of you that don't know, I consider a legacy pick a guy whose father played in the game. Okay? Other than the Matthews brothers, I can't think of a single NFL player whose mommy or whose daddy played in the NFL and ended up being really good in modern times. You've got the Springs, and obviously Sean Springs, his father played. Remember Dorsett's kid? How did that work out? Remember Winslow's kid? How did that work out? Jackie Slater.
Is that Randy Moss's boy was an undrafted free agent this season, and he got picked up. I don't remember offhand who, but we'll find out if that trend continues.
Right, and let's not forget Jackie Slater's kid. How did he turn out? McCaffrey's kid is pretty damn good, right?
Yeah,
so,
I would say so.
But
I think he'd be better than Dad.
I think he is better than Dad. I agree with you. So there are always exceptions to the rules, but by and large, the numbers weigh very heavily in my favor. I don't like legacy picks unless you're going to make it in the first round like a McCaffrey or even a Sean Springs. Once you start going second and third and fourth round, I don't like legacy picks because it tells me the third thing, lazy. This draft pick was lazy. You don't need to. They probably looked at film of Sean Jefferson's dad and went, oh, if he's anything like his father. I can't stand it. It's lazy. That tells me the Rams did zero studying of film during this offseason. Zero. Absolutely none. Because you just kind of throw out your second decision. Let's go with this one. That tells me whoever the Rams were looking at that spot was already drafted, and their board was pretty much barren from there on out. And that bears fruit through the rest of the draft because their third pick in the draft was, correct me if I'm wrong, Eric, a tight end?
I don't have the Rams draft list in front of me. I apologize.
That's all right.
I thought it was more defense, but I could also be wrong.
Well, maybe. I know they picked up a linebacker. I know they picked up a lineman with their last pick, and then they turned around and they got another tight end. So what do I think of the Rams draft?
Hey, that's cool. You guys got a tight end. Maybe we'll swap.
Yeah, no kidding, right? We'll trade you ours for yours. By and large, I look at this Rams draft, and again, I weigh it the same way I always weigh it. I see players that were on the board that they didn't get. I see players that they drafted that don't fit what their weaknesses are at the moment. And I look at...
Hold up, sorry. The third pick in the third round was Terrell Lewis, a linebacker from Alabama.
Right, I thought it was a linebacker. So we'll go through these last few. I like that pick because he's a short tackling linebacker and he comes from a football factory in Alabama. Doesn't take a lot of film study to go, okay, we know what comes out of Alabama, we're good. Although remember, Alabama's defense has not been good the last few years in comparison to what it used to be. And now you're drafting linebackers as if they were still a dominant force in college football.
You're very accurate in that assessment. Just remember, though, you can't say, you can't knock him down because the whole unit might have played poorly. You have to look at the individual himself, and you know that.
Absolutely.
I'm just explaining to everybody else, hey, Alabama's defense may have had a crap year by their standards, but if Terrell Lewis stood out and was like the one bright spot, hell, that's a great pick.
Absolutely.
It's like the Cardinals drafted the Simmons kid from Georgia, Georgia or Clemson. He can play like 4 different positions or whatever, but they're going to use him. The safest, maybe the best pick of the draft as far as defense goes, but. These guys need to have a position, and if Lewis provides depth for a couple of years or a year before he becomes a starter, more power to him.
Right. Now, who is the Rams' next pick?
1 second.
Yeah, I thought you had it in front of you.
You got a couple of Terrell guys on the Rams. Terrell Burgess from Utah, safety.
Okay, so with that pick, I didn't like it. We didn't need a safety. We've got John Johnson III coming back. We've got who's the other safety we picked? Oh, Taylor Rapp. we didn't need depth at a position that only has two guys playing, and with enough good corners, you can throw somebody back there. Not to mention the Rams have Long Jr., who is a safety / DB, so he could come in if anyone gets injured. I don't necessarily like wasting draft capital on that, because now that tells me either Taylor Rapp might be getting pushed for some playing time, because Terrell Burgess is not a bad safety, but again, you're getting a safety from a conference that doesn't know how to spell defense, let alone play defense. So, granted, that doesn't mean Utah's defense was poor in comparison, but maybe that's why they got him, is they're like, look, he's in a conference that throws the ball over the lot and he stood out on film, but who are you going to replace him with? Are you going to start him over Taylor Rapp? You going to start him over Johnny Johnson III? Or are you going to move him the corner? Now that may be an option, but I'm very nervous about that, because you move a guy from safety to corner, they don't always do well. You're not going to always get the Jerry Gray model, right? Jerry Gray was a safety at Texas, played DB, and was a Pro Bowler. More often than not, you get a Dorsett situation, not a Dorsett situation, Albert Shelley situation from Atlanta a few years ago. Anyway, what is your take on that pick? Eric?
Sorry, I didn't catch that.
What is your take on the pick?
Listen, when you start picking players in a position you don't need, when there are obvious holes to fill, you're not using the draft the way it's meant to be.
Nope.
So if you want to keep continuing to draft safeties and tight ends, okay, you're really not building your team from the trenches.
Nope. And then the Rams.
That's what you need to do to be able to compete in the NFL. And even if it's just getting depth, and maybe that depth turns into starters next, the following season or two, at least you have that, and then you can build from strength. But you can't keep doing it and picking up safety. I mean, you drafted a tight end after that, you drafted another safety after that. It's like, what are you doing? Right.
And then they finally get the lineman in the 7th round. So when I look at the Rams draft, there's 3 picks that I like. The linebacker from Alabama, Cam Akers, and the lineman from Clemson. Other than that, I think this draft was an absolute and total bomb. And if the Bears got a D- for their draft, only because I think the Rams at least took care of some issues, I'm going to give the Rams a C-, a full letter grade up, because the running back situation was a very real concern, and they got one of the 2 best running backs on the board, which is hard to believe. And they got another linebacker too, who's injury prone, but at least they're addressing those 3 areas: linebacker, offensive line, and running back. So I would go C-, and that's me being very gentle. But it certainly wasn't as bad as the Bears, but it's nothing that let's put it this way. We're not going to win the Super Bowl and look back at this draft and go, wow, man, if it wasn't for the 2020 draft, man, we wouldn't be here. If we win the Super Bowl, it's going to be in spite of the 2020 draft. I really do believe that.
Oh, yeah, I definitely would agree on that sentiment. You just got to look at it and be like, you really hope things fall into place. Like, for the Bears, you hope that the offensive line can get better.
Yeah.
And then you look and see, hey, who's your offensive line coach? Well, it's Juan Castillo. He's been known to help out offensive lines. So do the Bears think that, hey, we got this offensive line coach who can get a lot out of everybody? If it is, it's genius. If not, you're going to have a long year, and whoever's back at your quarterback, it doesn't matter if it's one of the 2 starters or you're playing the Wildcat, you're going to get blown up every time.
Well, it's like the Rams. When McVay came in, he didn't blow up the offensive line. He got one guy to add to the line, and he went out and he got a coach that has a reputation of doing good with the offensive line. And I can't complain with our O-line coach with what he did with those 2 rookies at the tail end of last year. But you're taking a gamble saying we're only going to bring one guy in because we really believe the guys we have we can run with. Well, again, you're only as good as your offensive line, period. No offense has ever been great without an offensive line, ever, in the history of the game. And that will continue to be the case. So, it'll be funny because if this line for the Rams does excel, then Jared Goff will get none of the credit and they'll talk about the line. But if the line is awful and they fall apart, they're going to rip apart Jared Goff. Mark my words. I'm calling it now. Anyway, Bears get a D-, Rams get a C-. We're going to do the rest of the draft coming right up. Wrap up this draft segment, if you will, with a little bit of a talk. We're going to talk about teams that we thought did really well in the draft, teams that we thought did really poorly in the draft, and then I'm going to throw one out there. I'm going to throw out there a team that I expected to do well based on where they were drafting, and did they or did they not accomplish it? And then, Eric, I want you to do the same thing. So first of all, the two teams for me that absolutely hit this draft out of the park, I'm going to start with the Washington Redskins. They get the best pass rusher on the board. They get some help within their offensive line later in the draft. They pick up some quality players. I was really impressed with Washington because I went in with no expectation and I walked out going, holy crap, the Redskins got that guy. Washington got that guy. The Redskins picked him up. I think if you're a Redskin fan, you're looking at this draft as the beginning of something positive moving forward with your new coach, your new GM, and it looks like the Redskins may have finally figured out the draft. Now, if you can figure out the draft and then figure out free agency, which is a long wish list when it comes to Snyder running the show, I think you're in a good position. They got the coach right, and I think they really did a good job on getting the draft, Eric.
In 2017. Listen, Chase Young, he could have been blindfolded, deaf, blind, everything. And taking I was going to tend to stay away from Cincinnati and Washington as far as who ended out of the park. But since you brought up Washington and you have your love affinity with them for some reason,
whatever.
Listen, Chase Young, to me, was the surest thing in the draft. Yes, more so than Joe Burrow. Cincinnati had to do what they felt was right, and I'm not going to knock them for it at all. But Washington's sitting there saying, okay, fine, we'll just have the best player in the draft, all of us. And, I wouldn't be able to run up that card quicker or type it or text it or do whatever quick enough to say Chase Young's our guy. Like if Cincinnati would have came out and said, Joe Burrow, we're already drafted number one, I'm watching, I'll be like, yep, Chase Young, welcome.
Well, the thing that I think is funny about this whole Chase Young versus Burrow thing is, I heard this same song and dance with Reggie Bush and Mario Williams. And everyone said Mario Williams was the better draft pick. And then I look at their career numbers and I go, really? You're going to sit there and try to convince me that Mario Williams was better than Reggie Bush? I think it was Mario Williams. Is that right?
It sounds right, but I will say that the only knock on Reggie was all of taking money while he was in college crap. And so I think that's why people were trying to knock him down. But other than that, no, Reggie Bush was the better pick over Mario Williams. But again, if you're the Texans and you had a running back, and I'm saying if they did have a running back, they wouldn't take Reggie Bush. They would take their defense guy that they need. But, whatever. Nobody ever does the right thing anyways.
No, they always do the flashy thing, right?
Yep.
This is so annoying. I'm going to look for something here. Hold on. I want to go over this. Redskins. Dude.
We're still on?
Yeah, we're still on. I'm just trying to get this thing to work. Trying to look for something. Here we go. Okay. Here we go. Perfect. So I'm continuing to touch on the Redskins. I'm trying to pull up their official draft number, their draft picks, because I like the Saquon Charles pick as well, but this thing is taking forever. God, I hate my internet. Okay. Okay, so Chase Young, we all agree, great pickup. Then they got Antonio Gibson, the running back from Memphis, which, they're starting to act like the Lions, drafting a running back every year. But the Saquon Charles pick from LSU, the left tackle, was humongous. Absolutely humongous. And I'm not just talking about his size. I mean the actual pickup. Then they turn around and they got Antonio Gandy Golden from Liberty. Now, we talked about this, Eric. I watch a lot of Division I AA games. I know you said you can't. It's just not, you can't get into it. I can't get into regular college football because it's the same old garbage week in and week out with the same level of talent. And, so it's really a matter of coaching. And some of the guys that are propped up, I just don't think are very good. And some of the guys that aren't starting, I get angry that they're not starting. So when I want to really dial it down and bring my blood pressure down, I'll go to Division I AA. And following the Black Bears, I watch a lot of that type of football. And this kid from Liberty, what I like about him is he's 6'4". He's over 220 pounds. And he's got some of the strongest hands I've seen. This is the same kid that broke a tackle from a linebacker, went upfield and had the ball. I don't like the way he was carrying the ball. That's definitely something he should be coached on. But he was palming the ball, and a defender came and smacked his hand, and he pulled the hand and the ball into his body, and there was no bobble on the ball. Now, if you want evidence of strong hands, I don't know that there's more evidence of that on film than what I witnessed watching that Liberty versus Memphis football game. Or not Memphis, but Montana football game. So now that I got Eric back on the line, what I was saying is when I saw him not fumble that ball, and like I said, this kid looked like a professional football player on a field with a bunch of high school kids. So at 6'4", over 200 pounds, this kid from Liberty, Antonio, is amazing. And I really thought that was a nice pick. It told me that the Redskins did their homework. The last really pick that I want to talk about that I was impressed with was where was he here? Hold on a minute. No, not the kid from Michigan. Not the safety from Arkansas. It might have been that kid from, here he is. No. He had a couple of good ones, but the kid from San Diego State that was a guard is the one I'm going to talk about really quick. This kid, again, I like San Diego State. So Keith Ishmael was a really good offensive lineman on a high-powered offense in Division I. San Diego State plays in the Mountain West Conference, so it was kind of nice to see some of the non-traditional guys that do really good work get drafted, and this kid's going to be an impact player. So they got themselves a center. He can also play guard, and they got themselves a tackle. So I think Washington's making the right investment in their quarterback, giving them every opportunity to succeed as humanly possible. So it wasn't just the Chase Young pick. It was what they did later in the draft that I really liked. And like I said, that kid from Liberty was probably my favorite. Go ahead, E.
That wears blue and orange. Would have been a great pick for them. But, it is what it is. Rivera did a great job in his first draft with Redskins. And I'll tell you, if Haskins is not able to take steps forward this season, I don't know how much, I don't know how long his leash is going to be, especially with the new head coach. So, a lot of it's right on that. He's got weapons. Still got 2 or 3 running backs from last year that are back that are going to help solidify behind him, and now they're upgrading the offensive line. So he should have a lot of time, and he should have people to throw to. So if he starts running into excuses or whatnot, look an eyebrow after you see that.
Right. So here's my other surprise team. My other surprise team was the Arizona Cardinals. In the first round, they got Isaiah Simmons from Clemson. They picked up Josh Jones from Houston. That was the guy I wanted the Rams to draft in in the second round, but they took Cam Akers, which I'm not disappointed in. We need a running back, and they got one of the two best running backs in the draft. Then they picked up Leaky I can never say his name, for the defensive tackle from Utah. Not a great pick, but it's what they did with their other fourth-round pick when they picked up Rashard Lawrence, who I think is probably the most dominant defensive lineman in football the last 2 years. They didn't have a 6th or 7th round pick. I thought they nailed it. I think they absolutely knocked it out of the park. Of their 5 draft picks, 4 of them were out of the park home runs. And, that's hard to do. So I really want to give credit to the Cardinals. And unfortunately, they're in our division and they just got better this offseason, and we did not. So did they get better than we are? I'm not saying that. But when you stay the same or get worse and the team below you gets better, you can expect closer games coming down the pike. That much I can be sure of. So anyway, that was my other surprise team, Eric. You?
Yeah, well, the interesting thing with the Cardinals is a lot of that damage for the Cardinals and them getting better was done before the draft. So they plugged in some holes. I mean, when you get Simmons to plug him in on the same defense as Chandler Jones, like, your defense is going to be really good. Okay, they just have some other places to kind of fill those gaps in. Get some depth because there's a lot of guys also who are getting up there in age. But also, you got DeAndre Hopkins. Now your offense, as long as you can keep Kyler Murray upright and healthy, that offense is going to be, like, surgical.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I like what the Cardinals did, too. They're making leaps. Did they get better than the Seahawks or the 49ers? Well, that's why they play the game, so we'll find out on Sunday.
Yep.
As far as for my surprise team, or teams, I should say, well, I'm not going to be that guy who says, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I thought the freaking Vikings nailed it. They didn't have to move up. Justin Jefferson, wide receiver from LSU, just fell to them. And I mean, no wide receiver went in the top 10, which was amazing and astounding to me because it's such a deep wide receiver class. So, after the Vikings trade Stephon Diggs, you're like, all right, who are they going to try to trade up to get? And they don't trade up. They stay exactly where they are. And Justin Jefferson's right there. I'm like, oh, you got to be kidding me. I'm like, this kid's going to be amazing in 2 years.
Yep.
I don't like to hype up a rookie too much because you never know. He could fall flat on his face too. But there's not going to be any of those chemistry issues between Cousins and Diggs like there was. You could see it toward the end of the year when Diggs was upset in the middle of the year, carried over into the playoffs. So Jefferson's going to come in. He's going to be his best friend. I'll tell you that much right now. But then when you go on the defensive side of the ball to pick up a cornerback called Jeff Gladney from TCU, he's actually a bigger corner, and he's got a nice wingspan, and he can easily knock the ball away. Corners, obviously, I always give them a year. I think you could pick on them in year 1, but year 2, watch out. But I think that what the Vikings did there in their first 2 picks, and that's not even getting into their later picks, I thought they hit it out of the park in the first round.
Yeah.
Because they got that second first-round pick from Buffalo for the Diggs trade. Then they pick up a tackle, Ezra Cleveland. This dude is a mauler from Boise State. You watch any Boise State game, they always highlight this kid. And they're going to keep Cousins upright a little bit more. And he's going to open up lanes for Dalvin Cook. So their first 3 picks were just freaking great. I mean, the Vikings are going to stay strong. I don't foresee them really taking much of a step back. The only thing, the reason they take a step back is because of division play. Because when you play in the NFC North, man, I mean, you're bruised and battered. It's never fun, going through the gauntlet. But the Vikings did a really good job with their especially the first 3 picks. I like what they did.
All right, who's your second one?
Second one, well, this is to everybody out there who laughed. But I will tell you this right now, that what Denver did on the offensive side of the football, it actually happened in all 3 teams that are trying to catch Kansas City. And Kansas City just added to what they did. the Chargers selected a quarterback, the Raiders and Broncos selecting wide receivers. And the Broncos, what they did with their first two picks, they picked two wide receivers, actually. I don't think that they are in love with Deshaun Hamilton, but they do love Courtland Sutton. And I think Hamilton now gets buried on the depth chart. So after they picked Jerry Jeudy, they went out and picked up KJ Hamler. And when you know you've got a quarterback who can play football, and Drew Lock showed everybody that he can play at the end of the year, that was just been upgraded with new weapons to go along with Sutton. And you might as well add Melvin Gordon with Philip Lindsay in the backfield. If the Broncos don't contend and are not 10-6 and are worse, something has happened in Denver. Primarily, if it's not injuries, it's just bad play all around. And they only have themselves to blame, and they only have the front office to blame. Because I'll tell you this much. Fangio could have taken that defense to new heights. And I'll tell you, if Von Miller gets back to 100% full health, all right? He got COVID-19. He was saying breathing was really hard for him. So if he comes all the way back, he's 100%. And that defense is ready, like Fangio knows he can get them ready. You know, the only thing you can have to question is the offense. And I like Denver playing sneaky in that AFC West team. And I think they're number 2 in that division right now. But I love what they did. They just went out and said, you know what, we're going to go get weapons. We already have the offensive line. We're replacing Eric Bowles, who has 700 holding penalties a game. And, you know, our defense is good because Fangio's going to work with them and make them better. But Denver nailed their first 2 draft picks.
All right. Now we're going to go with our disappointments. So for me, I'm not going to pick both the Rams and Bears because we've already covered them at length. I will definitely say the Rams and Bears are tied for one of my most disappointing, considering what you needed, what you could have gotten, and what you did with your pick. Now, I'm not going to say they're the most disappointing, but they're one of my 2, and they're tied together since they equally screwed up the draft. The team that I think screwed up the draft more than anybody else, perhaps in football. Now, listen to me very carefully. I'm an Alabama Crimson Tide fan. I'm not a casual fan. I'm one of those crazy people that watches their every single game on CBS, and I think they pretty much play every single game on CBS. Out here, I don't think I missed too many Alabama games. I know Jalen Hurts. I know him well. And the fact that anybody drafted this pile of human fecal matter anywhere higher than the 5th round, whoever drafted him in the 1st round was going to be one of my more disappointing draft picks. But for him to go to Philadelphia, where you already have Carson Wentz, who's injury prone, whatever. You already have Carson Wentz. You turn around the 2nd round and you get Jalen Hurts. If you are a Cowboy fan, if you are a Redskins fan, if you are a Giants fan, celebrate that pick. Don't be mad that they drafted Jalen Hurts. Let me tell you what Jalen Hurts likes to do under pressure. He likes to throw the ball into the turf, or he likes to throw the ball to the opposite colored jersey. When he goes up against a real defense, points are about as common sense today, which is 0, null and void. They're gone. Right? The playoff game, living proof. You want to know what Jalen Hurts is like when the pressure is on? Go watch Oklahoma's playoff game last year. It's all on tape. That's what Philadelphia got. This kid is going to be garbage. He shouldn't have been a starter in college, but because there's 9,000 teams in college, he gets a starting job. And now you're going to put him as your number 2 pick. I thought it was a 1st rounder, but whatever, your 2nd pick in the draft. Philadelphia is desperate, and they just put themselves in a very bad situation because you know Carson Wentz's eyebrows went up. You know the coaching staff's eyes went up. And if it was the GM's decision or the owner's decision, then the opposite's eyebrow goes up. You paid all that money to Carson Wentz, and you turned around and got Jalen Hurts.
Well, let me interject here really quick. not in agreement with most of your points. Okay? And yes, Oklahoma doesn't play the same type of caliber teams that Alabama does. It doesn't face the type of defenses that Alabama does, okay? I'm okay with Philadelphia making that pick for one reason. And that is Josh McCown cannot play until he's 60 years old. Okay? And he came out of retirement to play. He ended up playing in the playoff game. And majority of the reason why Philly lost is because they had nobody healthy on offense. And McCown basically willed his way. Now, if Wentz goes down again, okay, which is almost certain to happen, all right, I would kind of want a young quarterback to come in and play and not have to rely on somebody who's in a wheelchair. I'm hoping it doesn't happen, but you kind of need to have a semi-capable backup. You can't have Chase Daniel as your backup for 3 years. You can't have Tyler Bray as your third quarterback. Might be forced to play. The Rams really have no backup quarterback behind Goff right now. I mean, they do, but the guy's never taken a snap since Pee-wee, Pop Warner League. So I know they're looking for a backup quarterback. I'm okay with it, knowing that if Wentz goes down, I can put somebody in there who's gonna be there all year.
Okay.
As far as him drafting him to be a starter, no.
Eric, you said a capable quarterback. That is exactly what Jalen Hurts is not.
Well, I guess when I say capable, I mean somebody who can. He's probably just going to keep the ball tucked and run. So you have a Michael Vick, Lamar Jackson, very light quarterback.
Yeah, we have a Michael Vick, Lamar Jackson type of quarterback who has no speed, has no moves, and isn't very good at making people miss him. So, yeah, if you mean we've got basically me in a younger, taller body and different skin color, then yeah, you're absolutely right. Because the average guy can do what Jalen Hurts does with the football in his hands.
Well, here's the thing, too. I'm glad neither of us are Eagles fans.
Oh, yeah, no kidding, right? I'll just tell you one thing. If I was an Eagles fan, I'd be livid. Talk about a wasted second-round pick. I thought it was a first round, but second round's a little more tolerable. I could throw the Patriots on the list. They didn't do anything to improve their football team, especially at the quarterback position. I could have thrown a lot of teams in there, but I couldn't believe Jalen Hurts went before the fifth round. I really can't. I might have even been okay with him going late third round to like a New England or not a Kansas City, but like even Philly. Philly made the playoffs last year. Like that would have been fine if it was a round later. I still would have thought it was a reach, but I wouldn't have put him on the list. Let's put it that way. All right. Your disappointing team, Z.
All right, I actually just have one. And this team addressed no needs. This team apparently drafted their quarterback of the future to sit for the next 2-3 years. And then they go out and they draft a running back after their current running back scored 19 touchdowns last year. They just tell them the Green Bay Packers. I'm sorry, Jordan Love is not a top-tier quarterback. There was a big reach, especially after you trade up to get him, because I don't think he was going to go for the first round anyways. But that's fine. That's fine. Give up your draft capital. That's great. And then you want to follow that up with drafting A.J. Dillon, running back from Boston College. Tells me all I need to know what you think of Aaron Jones. Tells me that he's not going to be around for the long term. He gets better in that system. Dillon is more of a power back, and Jones is more of that shifty back. Sure, you can put him on the goal line. He could be a mini bus light or something. But I just think when Green Bay does not draft a wide receiver, so they're banking on another 180 targets to Devontae Adams, and they really struggle with Adams down last year, the turf toe. And then your next wide receiver is Alan Lazard, Gallen and Equimania St. Brown. Dude, you got problems. I would have traded up to get a wide receiver, and I probably could have got Jordan Love in the second round, and then A.J. Dillon in the third round. But no, that's fine. That's fine. I want you to give up your draft capital. I want you to make Aaron Rodgers mad, because when Aaron Rodgers mad, he's just going to throw the ball away.
Well,
and what really fascinates me, especially everything coming out of Green Bay, is, Aaron Rodgers said, well, the team, that's awesome, great. Listen, I don't give a crap what you think about a draft pick. You're not calling the shots up in the front office. So, yeah, you should be a good teammate, and you should be better than what happened to you when you got drafted, because that's how life works. You should be the better person, okay? And I don't care if he is mad, and he gets upset, and he needs his hands held. I'm not doing it, especially me.
I will say one thing. I think, and I've said this, I think Aaron Rodgers is nowhere near as good as the NFL Network, the announcers, and ESPN continues to try and make us believe. I've seen his play decrease so much, and I think that this year the Green Bay Packers won in spite of Aaron Rodgers, never because of Aaron Rodgers. And I remember
The only game that Rodgers won basically by himself, okay, that I watched, because granted, unfortunately, I get freaking every Packers game out here. The only game that he willed his way to throw the ball wherever he wanted was a game against the Raiders.
Yeah.
Okay? Every other game was, phantom PI call, phantom roughing the passer call, especially against Carolina.
And Detroit.
When Rodgers isn't at home and he doesn't get those calls, then Green Bay gets exposed. All you have to do is go look at the game against the Chargers in LA and then the two games against San Francisco.
Yep.
They got worked.
Oh, yeah. And so I don't mind getting a quarterback to replace him. Okay, Eric, last thing on the draft. I'm going to touch on a team that was in perfect position to do well in the draft, and I think they did really well. Now, this is a team that lost a lot of linemen last year in the offseason due to injuries and really never got a chance to compete in 2019. They lost their starting offensive lineman to a torn knee. They lost their starting right guard to a knee injury in the second preseason game, and they lost their center in the second or third week of the regular season for the year. They didn't need linemen. They just need those guys to come back and get right. What they did need is they did need a quarterback who could put a face on the franchise. I've already given away who I'm talking about. They did need defensive help, and they needed another offensive weapon to help A.J. Green out, coupled with a couple of their key players that they kind of have on the outskirts. Tyler Eifert is done. I can't see that kid coming back and having a strong career. He's had too many injuries. Their other tight end looks okay. The Bengals, huh? Well, that's what I'm saying. Okay, well, even better then. Not what I'm saying. Okay, case in point. So I don't think he's going to produce in Jacksonville. And the kid that they had last year before he got hurt was okay. They needed help. And that's exactly what they got. That's exactly what they got. They got the help that they needed. So they picked up a linebacker from Wyoming, Logan Wilson. They picked up the linebacker from Appalachian State, Akeem Davis-Gaither. But the T. Higgins wide receiver from Clemson was a phenomenal pick. It's not who they wanted, but it's who they had three guys on their board, and I guarantee you, the kid that went to Minnesota was number one on everyone's board. This guy was probably 2 or 3, and they got him. So you got to put a check mark next to Cincinnati. I never like these people that go, oh, well, they should have had a good draft. They were drafted number 1. Well, I seem to remember the San Diego Chargers drafting number 2 overall and not doing well. I seem to remember them going with Ryan Leaf, right? Actually, I think they were number 1 overall, and they chose Ryan Leaf over Peyton Manning. I seem to remember a lot of teams bombing it in the first round when they had a high. Look at the Chicago Bears. Do I need to continue? So, it was good to see the team with the number 1 overall pick do the right thing. We saw Cleveland just 2 years ago not do the right thing, right? Instead of getting Josh Allen from Wyoming, they went ahead and got Faker Mayfield, right, from Oklahoma. How's that panned out for the Brownies? So it's not enough to be there, you got to accomplish it when you do. So my team that hit it out of the park, who was in perfect position to hit it out of the park and did what they were supposed to do, the Cincinnati Bengals. E, take it away.
Yeah, for me, I mean, this could come down to two teams, but I'm gonna go with this team, and I want to clarify and right or wrong. I said that Jerry Jeudy went to the Raiders. That was wrong. Henry Ruggs III went to the Raiders in the first round, and the Raiders had back-to-back picks in the first round. Pick number 12. Pick number 12, and then pick number 19. The Raiders getting another weapon for Derek Carr, and then followed up with a cornerback selection from Ohio State. You know, Ohio State is the best team in the Midwest. Okay, best college football program in the Midwest. They're head and shoulders above a lot of other teams, and you know, people go there because they know they're going to get recognized, and that's what they want. And David Arnett got recognized, and he was their cornerback pick. Now he's a nice kid, can play ball, but I'll tell you, when the Raiders came back, okay, and in the third round, they selected Kentucky wide receiver, quarterback, hybrid, whatever you want to call him, Lynn Bowden Jr. I absolutely loved that pick right from the moment it was announced. And the reason why is, you guys heard this on one of the previous shows, but I did a college football fantasy league, okay? And it was on my team. There was a reason why he was on my team, and it's because the team can play. And I've never really watched many tough games, okay? But when you give an offense another weapon to utilize 5 different ways about to do, when they're in different positions, they can go out, they can do whatever you ask for. That's what you're trying to do. Anything you can to make the team. I just love the pick of Lynn Bowden Jr. For the Raiders in the third round. I thought it was an absolute steal. I thought he could have went higher. But, you know, I thought the Raiders did everything that they needed to do, just like you mentioned with the Bengals, getting Key Higgins. I thought the Raiders hit a grand slam on the puck.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, that's our draft analysis. Hope you guys liked it. We got one more show coming up pretty soon with the Rams' new uniforms. You know we're going to talk about that. Peace.